Okay, there we go. Good deal. Well, it's so nice to see everybody here this evening, and people feeling in a good mood because of this beautiful weather we're having. That is so great, and it is, even though this schedule, I have to admit, throws me off a little bit where we're adjusting our meeting times, somehow it doesn't seem in the right rhythm. Here we are for our actual first business meeting in August. And so we'll get started. I'm going to officially call this Kalamazoo City Commission meeting to order for Monday, August 12th, 2024. And our first order of business is roll call. Clerk Borling.
Commissioner Cooney. Present. Commissioner Decker. Present. Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Pradel. Present. Commissioner Wilson. Present. Vice Mayor Hess. Present. Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. May I please have a motion to excuse Commissioner Hoffman from the meeting this evening?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel.
Support.
Supported by almost half the crew up here. I guess we'll call it Vice Mayor Hess. And all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, nay? All right, thank you so much. The motion passes. Well, we are blessed this evening to have Jeff Port with us from Center Point Church. Jeff will be providing an invocation to help us get started here this evening. And I will ask everyone to stand for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray together. Triune God, we are so grateful for each of these servant leaders on our council who have been appointed by you for such a time as this. As each commissioner borrows your wisdom, we ask that you would give them collectively the unique ability to discern the common good for our community. Stir their imagination and resolve to use their gifts and calling to champion a vision of a city where businesses thrive and every person who wants a job can find a job, a city where educational institutions teach important subjects and model noble values, a city where healthcare is accessible to all, where nonprofits achieve their goals, where mothers and fathers and single parents feel hopeful that the next generation is empowered to realize their God-endowed gifts and calling, a city where no one feels marginalized, where the voiceless are not forgotten, where the incarcerated are treated with respect and dignity, where gun violence is curbed, and where every child is loved and has a home and our neighborhoods are safe. Surely such a grand vision is only possible through the power of an all-powerful yet ridiculously loving God. And it's through his Son, King Jesus, that we pray in his name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you again, Jeff. Appreciate it. We do not have any proclamations this evening, so the next item on our agenda is to adopt the formal agenda. Commissioners, are there any items on G, the consent agenda, that you would like to have to move to H, the regular agenda? Seeing none, move on. Is there anyone here in the chambers that wants to move an item from our consent agenda to the regular agenda? All right, seeing no changes there, we'll go forward as the agenda is proposed. Communications, Manager Ritzma.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is the opportunity for public comments for our meeting this evening. You'll have 3 minutes to make public comments on any topic you desire. Please come forward, state your name, whether you live in the city.
Hi, I'm Kay. I want to take you back to 2024 Commissioners Retreat, in which the city administration left out the very specific statistics that show their failures to prioritize the crises in the city of Kalamazoo, like the 2022 retreat. And instead, it was very interesting to see the city administration and the city commissioners mingle and do bonding exercises. Meanwhile, us, the people, grassroots organizations, watch from the sidelines, unable to speak or interact, no power to sway the decision makers. And it's just like that every day. Working class people, Alice communities living under the federal poverty line, powerless to the predatory practices of the real estate corporations taking over the city with the help of people in power and the city administration facilitating this power to corporate landlords. Like Cheryl Parsons, ecstatic about the so-called landlord toolkit to facilitate landlord real estate corporations from receiving government grants such as HUD's low-income tax credit. Meanwhile, they don't even offer the bare minimum of affordable housing based on the thousands of people in the 0 to 30% AMI waiting on affordable housing, destroying vital natural water basins and mature green spaces for gentrification, exacerbating flooding and accelerating the climate crisis. I digress. These corporate landlords have never worked with low-income households, so they inherently hold anti-poor bias. According to the UN, discrimination is part of the daily experience of people in poverty. It restricts access to employment, education, housing, or social services. It may result in certain social goods or programs not reaching people in poverty, owing to discriminatory treatment by officials, employers, landlords, or to the fear of maltreatment. People in poverty are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system, as judges may be biased against them or base their sentencing on anti-poor stereotypes. In the study conducted jointly by Oxford University, social maltreatment is described as the way in which people in poverty are typically treated within and by the community, oftentimes facing stereotypes, blame, and stigma. The process of othering is commonplace, where people in poverty are thought to be different and socially inferior. Social maltreatment in turn feeds institutional maltreatment or abuse, defined as a common failure of public and private institutions to respond appropriately to the circumstances, needs, and aspirations of people in poverty. It causes or perpetuates systemic disadvantages, undermines human dignity, or adversely affects the equal enjoyment of their rights and freedoms. As the Alice report confirms, there is now ample research demonstrating that the wealthiest groups of the population exercise a disproportionate influence on the political system, and that this phenomenon has become worse in the growth of inequalities over the past 40 years. A study covering 136 countries for the periods of 1981 to 2011 showed that as income inequality increases, rich people enjoy greater political power and respect for civil liberties than poor people do. This is specifically exacerbated in Kalamazoo by the rich buying the city budget, with the FFE and city administration working with landlords and real estate committees. For example, Rebecca.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Shona Espinoza, and I'm a resident of Kalamazoo. It's sad that we have to continue to keep coming up here because there's nothing getting done in the city. Where are the pods? Where's the help? Why are these landlords not being held responsible or accountable for the harm that they continue to cause? Why aren't you guys being held accountable for the harm that you continue to cause or ignore what's really going on in the city? Our youth, our babies are the ones that are at harm. These landlords have way too much power in the city. And for us to have a mayor that is a landlord or have many friends to be a landlord and aren't holding them accountable, that's a problem. That should not be a problem in Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo have an extreme housing crisis. When is something going to be done? I'm tired of hearing the talk, yes, I'm going to do this or do that. No, the time is now. We demand change now. There are many seats that's going to be coming up for election in the next couple of years that I believe that y'all should be voted out of because y'all not doing your job. There's a lot of privilege that is on this board in this community to think that there's not marginalized people in this community, that people that don't need help and we aren't receiving help. Y'all need to do better. There's so many white men on this board that think they're above us and don't have to do what's needed. Please hold your counterparts accountable because many of y'all aren't doing your job. You aren't helping. You're not coming out here. You're not seeing what's going on. And if you are, you don't care. Our children are the ones that are having to deal with when their parents aren't okay and aren't receiving the help. Housing is an extreme issue that's going on in Kalamazoo, and you guys see it and know it. When are you going to go to Lansing or DC and let them tell them that Kalamazoo has a housing crisis that is extremely horrible for your residents? Nobody should be out on the streets sleeping. It's about to be wintertime. Where are the pods? Where's the help? Where's the money? Where are you doing your job? We should not have to come up here and time again. I'm tired of coming up here, but our community matters to me more than it does you. Hold each other accountable for what you're not doing or what they're not doing. Come out here and be with the orgs that are out here actually doing the work almost every single day and see what their housing solutions are or what they're doing. It's time to grow up and do your job and not sit and reap the wealth or whatever y'all reeking because it's not impressive. Y'all actually look sad. This community needs help, and I'm demanding y'all to stand up and do what's right.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Adrienne Zaya. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for YWCA of Kalamazoo. I'm here today with a quick thank you for your continued support of our programs and services. At YWCA Kalamazoo, our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women, and we seek to raise up the voices of those most marginalized in our community. Our organization provides high-quality, trauma-informed, and comprehensive programs for many across the city of Kalamazoo. Every day, individuals and families rely on our dedicated staff to deliver holistic and comprehensive services that are supportive of their needs, including crisis advocacy, emergency housing, and legal services. Yet to ensure that they can expect to receive these services from the YWCA, such programs require stable and robust funding. Unfortunately, the need and demand for our services continue to far exceed the resources available to YWCA Kalamazoo and its clients. However, through the $100,000 fund approved by the City Commission on May 13th of 2024, YWCA Kalamazoo will be able to continue providing critical support to our clients through our gender-based violence initiatives and maintain access to reproductive health care for Kalamazoo residents. YWCA Kalamazoo is grateful for the support of the City of Kalamazoo and this body, as it allows our staff and leaders to continue to serve others while working to achieve our mission of eliminating racism and empowering women. Your support in allocating these funds will impact every part of our clients' lives. We look forward to finalizing appropriate documentation with you and working with you all in the future to further ensure Kalamazoo is a thriving community for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Tina. I'm here as I always am about the flooding. We heard you're going to put a little reservoir over on Reed Street. That's not going to fix the issues with your storm drains and your storm sewers and your pipes underneath the streets that are from 1960, probably even earlier. They're crumbling. They're not working. They're not doing their job. We've flooded 3 times this year. And yet you're still trying to take that last little green space away so Lyft can build. But why? We're in a climate change. We're flooding more and more. Your storm drains in the streets are flooding more and more streets out every time it rains. 2 inches of rain? Come on. We shouldn't flood with 2 inches of rain. 3 times in 1 year? And now you're still trying to take away natural spaces to build? Kalamazoo is a mess. And you guys have made it that way. The streets are horrible. Can nobody afford to live? Apartments, downtown Rose Street apartments, $1,200 to $1,400 for a studio apartment? Come on. This is ridiculous. I work 2 jobs. That's a lot for me. I wouldn't want to live downtown anyway, because your streets are just, you've made it to where nobody wants to come downtown because the streets are horrible. all over Kalamazoo. You've got construction everywhere. You've got businesses closing down right and left. That's nothing to be proud of. People are struggling to make it. And the more you flood us out, the more we have to struggle. I work 2 jobs. I shouldn't have to come to this meeting every first Monday of the month, every third Monday of the month, and preach this to the same choir, the same thing, and nothing gets done. No responses, no answer to my question. If you're in a chosen neighborhood, you will get an answer. But if you're in a poor neighborhood, you get no answer, nothing. You just have to struggle day by day. So your furnace goes out when you flood. You have to replace it. Your water heater goes out when you flood. You have to replace it. When the sewage comes up, and people don't realize, when we flood, your storm drains flood out the streets. And then it backs up the sewers into the groundwater, which is very high. And the more you build in my neighborhood, the more you make the groundwater higher and higher. The more you flood us out more and more. It's time to start caring about the real residents of Kalamazoo, not the rich, not the billionaires who have bought the city of Kalamazoo out. It's time to care about the people. I mean, come on, guys. You sit up here every day. I bring the same thing up every single day for the past 7 years, and I still haven't gotten anything fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and City. My name is Tony Kennedy. I frequent the City of Kalamazoo. I do have several meetings that I have to go to, so I thought I would go ahead and share my thoughts about the parking, as well as all of you know my feeling on the parking. I went ahead and took a look at what you put forth today. I also heard some of us that talked today and a few days ago, and I wanted to share with you that I will be in agreement with what it is. Not that you need me to agree, because apparently all of you are going to do what you want to do anyway, but I wanted to let you know that I am in agreement of what you are sharing or what you put forth in the packet. The only things that I did not see was, and I was hoping that you would consider maybe a review in a year, just to see how that's going and assess. I talked to Christina. She said, well, we already do that, and that's not something that needs to come up to the commission. But I believe that because we are in so many different opposite sides of the fence, why don't we put it that way, that it wouldn't hurt to have a review and know how things are doing. I'd also like to make sure that we consider handicap parking. I'm somebody who uses that periodically, and I know plenty of people that also use handicap parking spaces. So even though that might be a different phase coming up in the future, since you are evaluating currently what you're doing as far as your increases, et cetera, I would like to make sure that there is additional handicap parking spaces. And then something that Commissioner Pradel and I just talked about that has to do with the meetings. So I am somebody that does frequent meetings. I come to the city meeting, or I go to the county meeting, and I definitely go to the township meetings. And I would like to be sure that those parking spaces for the community are available and not have any kind of, are exempt from being charged. So I wanted to appreciate your having heard me last meeting. I'm still a little salty, but I'm good today. And I'm sorry I can't stay for to hear what you decide. But I'm hoping that you'll look at those three requests that I have to somehow incorporate that in what you're trying to do if you haven't done that already. Thank you, and I want you all to.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Chase Platty. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I just wanted to say that we would like to see public comment call-ins be able to come back because it is really not accessible for people who are working and have kids to be able to come here every meeting and speak and say the things they want to say to the city commission. I would also like to say that in addition to having call-ins to the meeting, there is an extreme housing crisis in Kalamazoo, extreme housing crisis. People cannot afford to rent on a single income. It's not even affordable. And that is why we're seeing so many homeless outside with nowhere to sleep, just being priced out of housing, being priced out of a place to live. And the city, it needs to be doing way more. You guys need to be doing water fountains so people can have water, can have a place to go to the bathroom, can have a public bathroom that's open and accessible to people. So they're not wondering, where am I going to sit today? Where am I going to go to the bathroom today? People are just trying to survive. Lots and lots and lots of Kalamazoo citizens are just trying to survive day to day. And there's lots of things this commission can do to support those people and to help those people. And that needs to be our priority because everything else you guys focus on can be secondary to the survival of the citizens that are counting on you to help and to be there to support them. And it's embarrassing that you're letting nonprofits do the work that this city should be doing to support people on the streets. Nonprofits will always be there to help, but there's only so much they can do. It needs to be solutions like affordable houses, like the pods. There needs to be somewhere for people to sleep in the winter, somewhere for people to stay. The YWCA is full. The gospel mission is full. What else is there? There's no emergency shelters. There's no shelters for families. There's mothers with babies living out on the streets, babies and toddlers, and their young kids who can't even go to school, can't go to KPS school. There are thousands of homeless KPS students. How are they going to go to school if they don't have a place to sleep at night, to get on the bus, to go to school, to get an education? You guys need to focus on the solutions and the changes you guys can be making and what you can do, not what you can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, greetings, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners. My name is Kevin Crittenden, and I'm here, and I'm the Associate Director of the Chamber here. The Southwest Michigan First Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with a number of stakeholders and businesses in downtown, express our full and urgent support for the implementation of each of the proposed downtown parking plan updates. This endorsement is built on years of discussions with small businesses, property owners, and others who recognize that these changes are not only critical, but now long overdue. The challenges associated with our current downtown parking have been well documented in various studies performed right here in our downtown dating back to the 1980s, including the 2009 Downtown Comprehensive Plan and the 2017 Gibbs Planning Group study. The Gibbs Planning Group was retained by the City of Kalamazoo to conduct an independent retail market analysis for its downtown central business district. Two findings were relevant to this discussion. First, expand on street parking in the downtown, especially in or near the mall. Secondly, and most relevant, is install parking meters along all commercial streets and offer 2 hours of free parking in public garages. The consistent findings in our downtown, not to mention the myriad of other towns and cities who have performed similar studies, all underscore the harm that free on-street parking in premium high-demand areas does to the surrounding businesses. Changes like these we are recommending would help contribute over $50+ million annually to the downtown businesses we all want to support. One of the most pressing issues this would also address is the current misuse of on-street parking. These prime spots are often occupied for long hours by residents, visitors, commercial users, and even employees of downtown businesses arriving before customers and remaining for their entire shifts. Make no mistake, while these are important people to the fabric to our downtown, this practice prevents untold numbers of potential customers from accessing these spaces and leaves those shoppers and diners out to other communities. In fact, studies show that this contributes to hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue annually per space, dollars that could remain right here in our community, supporting families and building community. The vast majority of businesses we talk to recognize the challenges of free premium spaces and are ready for you to act to address it once and for all. Help us move towards best practices as a community and finally get unstuck from the history of how things have always been. There will always be those who don't have all the data. We do, and we've paid experts to guide us. Let's leverage that expertise to create a more vibrant and successful downtown area. Thank you for your consideration and attention to this matter. We look forward to your approval on these components.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I stand before you today to discuss an important proposal that affects not just our wallets, but the very fabric of our community. The proposal in question is about a modest increase in the ramp parking fees. At first glance, an increase in price might seem like a step in the wrong direction, but let me explain why this proposal is actually crucial for maintaining the affordability and accessibility of our beloved downtown Kalamazoo. Our downtown is a vibrant hub for families, offering countless free events and activities that draw people from all over. Imagine a sunny afternoon spent enjoying the serene beauty of Bronson Park, watching your children laugh and play at the Children's Playscape, or immersing yourself in the wonders of the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. Our downtown is rich with experiences like the Holiday Parade, the Holiday Lighting Ceremony, and Santa's Workshop, all of which bring joy to families and strengthen our sense of community. Events like the St. Patrick's Day Parade, Doodah Parade, Beats on Baits, Workout Wednesdays, and the many In the Zoo events add to the cultural tapestry that makes Kalamazoo such a special place to live. These events are often free to attend, making them accessible to all families regardless of income. But that accessibility is threatened if we do not pass the proposed increase in ramp parking fees. Currently, the first 90 minutes of parking in our ramps is free, with a rate of $1.75 per hour thereafter, capped at $10 for the day. The proposed change would raise the rate slightly to $2 per hour, but the first 90 minutes would remain free. The importance of this proposal lies in its ability to preserve that crucial free 90 minutes. If we do not pass this ordinance, we risk losing that benefit. Without it, families will have to pay more, $5 for just 2.5 hours of parking. However, if the proposal is passed, the cost for 2.5 hours will be just $2, making it significantly more affordable for families to attend these beloved events. Consider what this means for our community. If parking becomes too expensive, families may be forced to limit their visits downtown. They may choose not to attend the Holiday Parade, skip out on In the Zoo events, or forgo a fun afternoon at the Kalamazoo Public Library. These are not just events. They are the moments that create memories and bring us closer together as a community. We have a responsibility to keep our downtown accessible to everyone. By passing this proposal, we ensure that families can continue to enjoy the free events and activities that make Kalamazoo such a wonderful place to live. I urge you to support this proposal, not as a price increase, but as an investment in the future of our community. Let's keep our downtown vibrant, welcoming, and accessible for all. Thank you. And I'm Becky from Pop City Popcorn. I forgot to introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Hi, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Heather Holmer, resident and owner of Rocket Biz, co-owner, sorry, Tom. I'm here today to add my support for the parking plan proposed at the last meeting. I watched the discussion remotely and was once again frustrated by the committee's sluggish response. The claim that there was a lot of information is not a valid reason to delay a plan that benefits the community. Similarly, constructions about bad timing due to endless construction and negative public opinion are simply short-sighted. I urge you to focus on what is best for Kalamazoo rather than succumbing to public bullying by loud naysayers. Business owners and employees in downtown Kalamazoo are committed to the city's success. As a group, we have come together in ways to create events and activate our downtown in ways that the city has not in recent years. We have more at stake and stand to lose more if the committee yields to undue pressure. There are many of us who worry about our long-term sustainability of our businesses and question whether or not this is a lease we want to renew when it comes due. When you hear from a few of us, you can assume that we typically agree on these city-related issues. It would be beneficial to feel supported by this committee in the future so that we don't add yet another frustration to the list of downtown issues that make us question our future. Please pass the parking proposal, as Becky has convincingly argued in favor of. She has been much more patient than I am today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident, and Rank My Vote volunteer. I wasn't planning on talking about Rank My Vote this evening. I did not wear the shirt, but I was looking at the date up there, August 12, 2024, and I thought, well, maybe at the next meeting I should tell people that we're planning on having a big statewide virtual Zoom meeting on Tuesday, August 20th. So I'll talk about that at the next meeting wearing my shirt, but why wait? 1 week from tomorrow, on Tuesday, August 20, at 7 p.m. Eastern, Rank My Vote will be holding a campaign update team from our statewide team in Lansing and Ann Arbor, featuring special guest Katie Fahey, one of the co-founders of Voters Not Politicians. Voters Not Politicians is a group that in 2018 brought you the Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission and followed up 4 years later with the voting reforms that brought us to 9 days of early voting. So if you want to participate in that meeting, please go to our website, rankmyvote.org/events, and scroll down to Tuesday, August 20th, and you need to click a link to register to get that Zoom link. Also, we are still recruiting volunteers for a statewide ballot initiative. That's what I'm currently doing at the farmers market, Bank Street Farmers Market, on Saturday mornings. Next year, mid to late April, we're going to begin collecting 600,000 petition signatures statewide. We'll have 6 months to do it, so we need our volunteers in place before then. Kalamazoo County's proportionate share of that 600,000 signature statewide goal is going to be 15,600 some. That means if we assign to every volunteer a goal of 200 signatures, we're going to need 77 volunteers here in Kalamazoo County. So if you want to help us in any way to get ranked choice voting enacted statewide in Michigan, please go to our website, rankmyvote.org/volunteer. That's rank MI, Michigan postal abbreviation, rankmyvote.org/volunteer. Sign up to volunteer, sign up for our email list. We're going to need a lot of people to do this because all those other things I've got on the ballot usually use paid volunteers. We're going to try to do it all on volunteer labor. We're going to need a lot of volunteers. We're going to need a lot of help. So rankmyvote.org/volunteer. And again, if you want to watch our statewide virtual meeting a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, go to rankmyvote.org/events. And until then, I'll see you at the Bank Street Farmers Market Saturday mornings about 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to take advantage of this opportunity to make a public comment this evening? All right, seeing no one, I just wanted to say I want to thank everybody for taking the time and making the effort to come here to this commission meeting to provide comments. Next is public hearing, and I'd now like to open a public hearing to receive comments on a resolution establishing a commercial redevelopment district at 5135 and 5147 Portage Road. And I'm assuming, Manager Isma, you have a staff report on this.
Yes, our Economic Development Supervisor, Paul Thuringer, is going to give us a brief presentation.
Welcome, Paul.
Vice Mayor Hess, Commissioners. We came to you in June of this last year and talked about this project at our Committee of the Whole meeting. And I have a little, I'm just going to kind of run through the presentation and tee this up to give everybody a reminder of where we have been. This is the Portage Road Corridor. It is an investment project, the former Brewster's site. As you can see, this is a view from Portage Road looking to the northeast. Apologies. Aha, there we go. There's a little map of the area. This is just south of I-94 on the east side of Portage Road. This is a $23 million investment project, or a $23 million investment. 20 million of it coming from private investment, about $1 million coming from this Commercial Redevelopment Act abatement that is in front of you this evening. We have received a state environmental grant from the Environment, Great Lakes and Energy Department from the state of Michigan for about $1 million. And the brownfield plan is going to be about $1 million in savings over the life of the project as well. This is a 50% abatement of taxes over a period of 12 years. This closes the gap for the construction financing costs. As you know, inflation is high and our to borrow money is high. And also inflated construction costs that we've been seeing citywide. We hope that this helps to jumpstart the area that has really been hit hard by the I-94 construction that has been occurring over the last few years. Staff has determined eligibility with this statute. We feel it's a growth and public benefit. As we said, the corridor needs a catalyst and this development, we believe, can do that. It's creating 15 full-time jobs and hopefully an increase in economic development activity in the area. Little aside, one of the notes is that they're not even putting a restaurant into this hotel, and we feel like this is really going to help the restaurants that are down on that Portage corridor, which is a great plus. After this abatement runs out and the brownfield plan ends, there would be $200,000 to $250,000 in annual tax benefit to the community. I ran some numbers today, and currently that site is about $22,000 a year in tax benefit. So a tenfold increase after this project moves forward. Developer requested this back in May, and we put that on the consent agenda, which you approved to set this public hearing. Here we are at the public hearing a week early, and I just wanted to point that out. And there's a resolution to establish this district and also to set another public hearing where we will bring forward to you the application for the district. So it's twofold. It's establish the district and then approve the application of the developer. We plan on bringing that to you on September 3rd. I have Greg Dobson and Kurt Artema from the development team if there are any questions. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Paul. Commissioners, obviously this is not the only presentation we've had on this. We had a fairly extensive one recently, but any questions for this evening that you have on this particular step we're being asked to take this evening? All right, thank you, Paul. Seeing no questions, now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. Once again, speakers will have 3 minutes for their comments. Please come forward, state your name, whether you live in the city, and just a reminder that we are talking about this particular item here, so this is not general public comments. Make sure you speak into the microphone also.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Marty Mott. I'm the owner of the building and the property that we're discussing. And I would like you all to know that I've been approached several times for possible things that want to be built. We've turned down many different things because we spent, my husband and I, who is now deceased, we spent over 50 years on Portage Road, from owning the gas station across the street, owning the gas station further down the street, a hangar at the airport. So my concern is that however this was property to be developed, that it would help the people that already have businesses in the neighborhood. We turned down a gas station, party store, pizza, pot place, you name it. And now we're trying to go ahead with these builders, seeing that it's going to be a positive for the neighborhood. And I would just like you to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Jeff Messer, city resident. First, let me express my support for this effort to give a 12-year, 50% property tax abatement for the construction of a Residence Inn hotel near the airport on the site of a former Bill Knopp's restaurant and a parcel that's been a parking lot for at least 20 years. Unfortunately, the developer has to come begging to the government for a discount on the property taxes. That's because our current property tax system penalizes development by taxing improvements upon land, such as building and other structures. In recognition of this, state government has programs such as Public Act 255 of 1978 that gives tax exemption certificates to certain types of developments under certain conditions. Some projects don't qualify for these property tax discounts. Some property owners may not know about them and or find the filing process and costs to be burdensome. Our current system also encourages owners to needlessly tear down buildings in order to reduce the property tax burden. An easier and more efficient way to encourage development, redevelopment, and discourage unproductive urban land uses is by switching to a land value tax system. Under a pure land value tax, only the land would be subject to property taxation, not buildings, personal property, or other improvements upon the land. Economists since Adam Smith and David Ricardo have advocated for this tax because it does not hurt economic activity and encourages development without subsidies. Land values tax efficiency has been observed in practice. Fred Foldberry noticed that land value tax discourages speculative land holding because the tax reflects changes in land value, encouraging landowners to develop or sell vacant and underused plots in high demand. Land value tax is arguably an eco-tax because it discourages the waste of prime locations, which are a finite resource. As mentioned earlier, the vacant lot at 5147 Portage Road has been a parking lot for over 20 years right next to the airport and Interstate 94. Shifting property taxes from improvements to land encourages development. Infill of underutilized urban space is one common practice to discourage urban sprawl. Nearly 20 Pennsylvania cities employ a two-rate or split-rate property tax, taxing the value of the land at a higher rate and the value of the buildings and improvements at a lower one. This can be seen as a compromise between pure land value and an ordinary property tax falling on real estate. Alternatively, two-rate taxation may be seen as a form that allows gradual transformation of the traditional real estate property tax into a pure land value tax. In 2023, Mayor Mike Duggan proposed a plan to tax land and buildings at different rates within the city of Detroit. The mayor bemoaned that under the status quo, blight is rewarded, building is punished, as speculators, absentee landlords, and faceless LLCs hiding behind shell corporations buy tens of thousands of Detroit properties, waiting for paydays when property values rise thanks to the
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to comment on this item for the public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll now close the public hearing. The recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Commissioners, is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Cooney, supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion. Vice Mayor Hess.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the new Residence Inn will, the old Residence Inn on Cork Street? Is it on Cork? Sprinkle?
It's on Cork, yeah.
It's on Cork Street. Is going to be renovated into housing units, which will help the housing here in Kalamazoo. So this new building will also, while it will bring commerce and activity to a parcel that hadn't been active for years, we're also freeing up space for more affordable housing in Kalamazoo.
Other discussion, commissioners? This item. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have to say for this redevelopment here, after going back and looking at, some of the planning commission meetings, just kind of seeing what happened, going back as far as, I think it was May of this year. This is a good development. When you think about taking an obsolete land that has been there, or a property that has been there that hasn't had anything on it in quite some time, and especially the fact that they're saying that they don't want to put a restaurant in there to really bring more jobs to that specific area. And you talk about, again, uplifting the people of Kalamazoo, what better way to do that is to bring in a hotel that's going to then be able to give more jobs and increase the wages of the individuals that live within that area. And it's nice to have something over there. And also, as you said, again, having that corridor when you're coming off that airplane and you're getting off and you go to your hotel and you're going down the street and you're going to start heading into our beautiful downtown when all the construction is done. And, bringing the economic vitality, that is what we need, is we need to have the economic vitality so we can raise the wages and the quality of living for the individuals that live here within the city. And I do think that I love that the old Residence Inn is being turned into housing, because we have to think about ways to, as Vice Mayor said, we have to think about ways to use the existing buildings that we have here and the existing property that we have here within the city of Kalamazoo, because we are landlocked. So we have to work with what we have. And I think this is a great development that can happen, that's going to prosper for the city of Kalamazoo.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other? Yeah, Commissioner Pradel.
This is maybe the second or third time that we've discussed this, but I'll share this again. In terms of that corridor, this is going to be a much needed injection of traffic and people. And I think this is exactly what that corridor needs right now after finishing that major interstate interchange there. I think this is, you see a number of the businesses that have closed their doors in the last couple of years. You can just imagine with having hundreds more people there every single evening, visiting the brewery, visiting the convenience stores, visiting the restaurants, Pizza King, all those places along that corridor, it's going to make a big difference. And I think this will be somewhat of a catalytic development where you'll start to see more come in there after this happens. And so I'm very much supportive of this. I think it's much needed right now. So thank you. Thank you,
Commissioner Pradel. Other comments? All right, seeing none. I just want to make a couple comments about this. Any new development like this, any effort takes a great deal of investment, even in advance of the actual approval, and it's accepting risk as well. So I just want to say thank you to our local developers that care about this area and want to make sure that we have quality developments, and I believe this certainly falls in that category. So thank you to those of you that are here. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Decker. Yes. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
The following items are presented for approval this evening. First is the approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Trace 3 for Cisco's network protection applications in the amount of $59,187, bringing the total purchase to $169,410.12. Next is the approval of an extension of the contract with Pipeline Management Company for the 2024 catch basin cleaning program in the amount of $128,625. Next is the approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Ferguson Waterworks for the purchase of ductile iron water main and appurtenances in the amount of $138,000. Next is the approval of a professional service agreement with Jones and Henry Engineers LTD for the water treatment plant number 11 sanitary sewer project design in the amount of $138,750. Next is the approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Jones and Henry Engineers LTD for the water treatment plant number 9 upgrades project in the amount of $148,750. Next is the approval of a contract with Carrier and Gable for the My Deal Cooperative Purchasing Program for traffic signals, controllers, components, and equipment in the amount of $500,000. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting a time to consider a commercial redevelopment exemption certificate application for 5135 and 5147 Portage Road. Next is the approval of a construction agreement with CD Arena LLC for the construction of water system infrastructure in the amount of $530,770. Next is the acceptance of a Michigan Department of Natural Resources grant for habitat restoration of Portage Creek at Millen Park in the amount of $75,000. Next is the acceptance of a holiday events grant from the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation to fund 2024 holiday events and programming in the amount of $80,000. Next is the approval of a recommendation to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners that Kurt Artema be reappointed as one of the 3 city representatives on the Central County Transportation Authority. And next is the approval of the mayor's appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions and committees. First, the reappointment of Pamela Burpee to the Civil Rights Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2027. Next is the reappointment of Sandra Calderon Hazuo to the Civil Rights Board for a term expiring on March 31st, 2027. Next is the appointment of Eleanor Harris to the Historic Preservation Commission for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. Next is the reappointment of Laura Fredrickson to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2027. And finally, the appointment of Evangelia Murgia to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2027.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So, Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 12 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel.
Second.
Supported by Vice Mayor Hess. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes, abstaining from number 8 due to work conflicts.
Vice Mayor Hess,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Commissioners. Items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we're at the regular agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Item H1 is first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 33, Streets and Other Public Grounds, Section 18-20, to update the requirements related to clearing snow and ice from sidewalks. And we have our city planner and Deputy Community Planning and Economic Development Director, Christina Anderson, who has a brief presentation of what this is about.
Welcome, Ms. Anderson.
I'm going to be honest, it's not that brief. I will go as quickly as I can. And the reason why it's not brief, I will say, is that we're combining 2 things here. This item was intended to be introduced to you at the Committee of the Whole meeting last month. We ran out of time because of an important item that required more conversation. So tonight's presentation is the presentation that we would have given at the Committee of the Whole plus first reading presentation, but I will talk fast. Okay, so a little history. In 2022, the city of Kalamazoo was awarded a training opportunity through the Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation. The intent of the training was to work through a process to be able to innovatively solve hard problems. It was a group that gathered staff across all departments to go through this process, to do the training, and our hard problem was to explore initiatives to create clear and passable sidewalks year-round. Now, the Bloomberg process, and I will not go through all the steps for you in the Bloomberg process, it was about a 10-month process that we went through both internally and with outreach and engagement with the community. What the Bloomberg process does is really try to get you to focus on what exactly is the problem. So if our goal is to explore initiatives to create clear and passable sidewalks, what does that actually mean? What is the foundation of that problem? So as it relates to sidewalks being impassable in the winter, we know that people must walk in the street or take alternate routes because sidewalks are often not cleared, or they choose not to walk at all, because it is more difficult for them or impossible for them to move on foot through our neighborhoods. The ordinance that we have in place now that regulates sidewalk clearing as a responsibility of properties, owners, and occupants is a real challenge to enforce. And we know that not all property owners believe it to be a priority to clear the sidewalks adjacent to their properties. We also know, as relates to the problem, that these sidewalks are vital connectors for our community. You know, we can all think of the kids that walk to school, but think through those that this is their primary form of transportation, whether it's by choice or by necessity, and the streets that they take must be clear for them. And finally, there's a lack of clarity on how we as a city handle the clearing of sidewalks on our own property, and again, related to the ordinance. So through the Bloomberg process, we dove into all these individual problems, and we came up with a few insights after talking to the community. So I'm just going to read the highlighted portions to you because they're pretty interesting, and you know, I'll say a little harsh, but also very true. The city's vision for a connected city is incomplete without better tactics for getting the word out about our sidewalk clearing ordinances and gaining more residents' compliance with the responsibility of clearing the sidewalks adjacent to their properties. The apparent lack of action on the city, on the ordinance, and the complaints that we get gives the perception that the city is ineffective in their work. The results of this perception will also lead to the perception that drivers hold a higher value status in our community than non-drivers, because those travel lanes are cleared regularly by the city. And the city is acting in a hypocritical manner when it chooses to not clear the snow from its own sidewalks in compliance with its ordinance. So we go through the problem in the Bloomberg process. We come up with some insights to help lead us through our work. We have conversations with the community. We met with neighborhood leaders. We met with residents. We met with business owners. And that led us to reframe the problem. So the focus of our problem was not just that we wanted to explore initiatives to create clear and passable sidewalks. Our actual problem, what we wanted to impact, was the ability to improve the length of sidewalks that are cleared every winter, that become passable, by creating effective tools that activate our connected city values. What the Bloomberg process teaches us is that everything should be on the table at the beginning, right? Put all your ideas out there, be willing to test things, be willing to try things, even if they seem implausible at first. And so we did that through this process. The two ideas that rose to the top at the end of this process are the following. One, that the city acts to clear at least priority sidewalks. What does this require? It requires us to identify those priority sidewalks, and we need a funding mechanism and capacity to do the work. The second idea related to achieving an increased length of sidewalks cleared each winter are to make sure that we are keeping both us as property owners, city as property owners, and our broader property owners within the community accountable for clearing the sidewalk adjacent to their own properties according to the ordinance that's on the books right now. So what does this require? So we need to make sure that we are, as a city, doing a better job clearing our sidewalks adjacent to our properties. We need to do some work to clarify what's in the ordinance, because we heard from a number of folks that not only did it appear that we weren't enforcing our own rules, but the rules weren't 100% clear as to what was required and when. And we needed to figure out how we could better manage and enforce the ordinance that we have in front of us. At the same time, we also included a question about snow clearing in our community survey that we do every couple of years. And it might be a little hard for you to read, but the questions related to, there were 3 of them. Do we believe it's sufficient that the primary responsibility for clearing sidewalks should be with property owners? That's question 1, of which 57% of those responding to the survey agreed with that statement. The second question was, agree or disagree, property owners should continue to be responsible for keeping their sidewalks clear in the winter. 71% agreed with that statement, either strongly or somewhat. And finally, the survey takers were asked to either agree or disagree with the statement, I support further cost and feasibility studies for the city of Kalamazoo to absorb snow removal responsibilities for the sidewalks. That was 64%. So we had our Bloomberg process where we went through a problem, tried to reframe the problem, trying to understand what we'd actually be capable of instituting at the city level. We had this information from the community through the community survey, which said, yes, it should still be property owner's responsibility, but we should maybe try some other things like the city taking over parts of that responsibility and give that a try. At the same time, we have our 311 data. And I know you had a copy of this presentation in front of you, so I won't read these to you all. I went back through the data to 2020 to present to review, thanks to Mimi, who got me all of the calls related to snow clearing, and reviewed, the calls that we got. It was a lot of repeat calls. It was every neighborhood where we getting calls from residents. This sidewalk is not clear. I fell. My neighbor fell. My kids can't get through this area. I have to walk in the street. Over and over again in those calls, trying to understand, how to impact this situation. Even in our relatively mild winter that we had this past year in 2024, I was surprised on the number of calls that we got from residents noting that sidewalks were not completely clear. And the challenge is that if half of a block clears their sidewalk, that's lovely, but the sidewalk as a pathway is still impassable if some number of property owners are not clearing their sidewalk in those locations. So it really is kind of an all or nothing activity. The Bloomberg work, the community survey, reviewing 311 data, kind of all led us to a variety of changes, of which are the heart of what is in front of you tonight for a first reading. So, going back to idea number 2 that came out of our Bloomberg work, we need to keep property owners accountable for clearing adjacent sidewalks. And we noted that that would require some ordinance updates, some better enforcement of the ordinance, and some additional education and outreach to make sure that we get there. That is why we are coming to you tonight with edits to Chapter 33, Streets and Other Public Grounds, to make some of the changes based on what we heard through the Bloomberg process and through the challenges that we have had as city staff trying to enforce and implement the ordinance. So the Chapter 33, the high level, the changes that are being proposed are more, and I'll get into these in more detail in a moment, but more clarity on what it means to clear the sidewalk. Is that just the one shovel path down the middle? Is it the entire length of the sidewalk down to the concrete? We wanted to make sure that when we talk about passable sidewalks, it's not just the snow that is a challenge, it is also ice. And so to make sure that we are asking very clearly for both snow and ice to be removed from our sidewalks. And through these edits, we reviewed the 2 enforcement mechanisms that we have in Chapter 33 and are proposing the removal of the one that we have employed the most because it is not effective to achieve the goals of the ordinance, which is to have clear sidewalks throughout the winter. So let's talk about current enforcement. Right now, the ordinance says, after 48 hours, you as a property owner or an occupant are required to clear the sidewalks directly adjacent to your property. If you do not, there's 2 mechanisms that the city can employ to enforce the ordinance. The first is it's a municipal civil infraction. So that's a $50 fine ticket, which increases with each additional offense. And there could be possible court proceedings. And several of these cases we know from public services staff that works to enforce these end up in court. The second enforcement mechanism that exists in Chapter 33 today is that we can cause the sidewalks to be cleared and then provide that or turn that cost around to the property owner for that clearing activity. We have not in the past been set up to really use enforcement mechanism 2, because that requires capacity and plowing and some additional funding, which in the past we have not had. So we have always used the municipal infraction route. So what does that mean? So the snow accumulates, and we wait 48 hours because that's what the ordinance says. 48 hours after the snow accumulates, at that point, sidewalks need to be clear. We receive a complaint, we do an inspection, and we have tried this 2 ways. We have mailed letters after going out to an inspection to see that there is snow in the sidewalk, mailed the property owner a letter asking them to clear the sidewalk by a certain date. We go back out for that inspection. If it's still not cleared, there's a ticket written and court action if necessary. Obviously, that takes quite some time. We are talking about snow, right, which can come and go, or instead of going away all the way, becomes something almost worse, which is ice or, very uneven surfaces. So we've also done, which is our current practice, is we don't mail the warning letter. If we receive a complaint, we do an inspection, and we find that your sidewalk is not cleared, then you receive a ticket. And again, there's possibility of going to court. The challenge with this path is that it takes a long time. It's a lot of time for staff. Any actions that go to court, we cannot do any additional enforcement on that property while they are going through the court system. What's happening here is staff is working very hard to follow the rules of the ordinance, but the sidewalks are not getting clear. This is not making the sidewalks clear of snow. All we're doing is we're taking a punitive step, which enforcement also often includes a punitive piece, but we're not meeting the end goal of the ordinance, which is to have clear sidewalks. So what we are proposing with these ordinance changes is to focus on the second existing pathway, which is that the city causes the sidewalks to be cleared, and the cost of that charge is passed on to the property owner. So in this case, we do that first step, right? The snow falls, we have 48 hours, we get a complaint, we do an inspection, same thing. In this case, though, if we see that the sidewalk has not been cleared, we cause it to be cleared. We have it set up where we can have someone go out and clear that snow. And then the cost, again, goes back to the property owner in the same way that the fine would go to the property owner. So in summary, the major changes to the ordinance. Currently, it says both property owner and occupant are responsible. We've removed or occupant. It is the property owner that is responsible. If you are a property owner that rents, you are certainly allowed to designate that responsibility to your tenants, but you need to spell it out in the tenant agreement, because at the end of the day, it's the property owner's responsibility to make sure that that happens. We do a better definition of what clearing means. So we do talk, when you clear the sidewalk, we want down to the pavement. We want the width of the sidewalk that exists adjacent to your property, and we're talking about both snow and ice. So there's the initial clearing as it relates to a snow event, but also some maintenance that may need to happen in between snow events. And the third major change is the removal of one of the two enforcement mechanisms, and that is the one with the civil infraction, with the ticket, because staff does not believe that it is achieving the goals of the ordinance. This is one tool that we have, and any changes to that tool require this body to review and consider them. But I want to let you know briefly before I open it to questions, wanted to talk about some of the other actions that we're proposing to help achieve clearer sidewalks in the winter. Because again, just like many of our other issues that we deal with, there's not one magic solution that's going to take care of everything. So we have a lot of other initiatives going on this winter. So first, I mentioned earlier that the city has not always been able to clear its sidewalks within the 48 hours. And we recognize that that has been something that we challenge we have not always risen to. We are committed to doing that. We have reviewed our process, we've reviewed our capacities, we have reviewed how we operate, whether it's city properties, Kalamazoo Department of Public Services, the properties that the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority owns, to review our procedures to make sure that those will get cleared within the time that is allowed by the ordinance. That accounts for about 19 miles of sidewalk right now, between sidewalks that we have agreements with, like with Michigan Department of Transportation, Western Michigan University, other places. The city has an agreement in addition to the property, adjacent to the properties it owns, to clear sidewalks. So we currently have about 19 miles under our authority, and that is what's noted in red on this map. This winter, through the Foundation for Excellence, we have funding to add another 14 miles of sidewalk, which the city will do a pilot program to clear this year. This, again, ties to Idea 1 from our Bloomberg work, which is, what if the city cleared priority sidewalks? What would that look like? And so through, again, a special budget request, we will be seeking services to cover these 14 miles, additional miles. Those that the firm or firms hired for that will also be our firms that help us enforce the sidewalk ordinance and the clearing of the sidewalks if they are not cleared within 48 hours. The priority routes, and again, I'm happy to share a copy of this map in a bigger format for you. I was trying to get the whole thing on the screen, and I know you have it in front of you too, but it's a little bit small. The purple lines are the areas that we are proposing to add to our clearing responsibility this winter. And so in looking at this, we really tried to pick areas based on what we heard from our Bloomberg process from the communities. So where are their bus routes? Where are the highest, some of our highest pedestrian routes that we have? And we have a lot, so we did have to make some decisions. Where could we add to clear the sidewalk that would make a longer network, right? So maybe we do on this side and this side already. What if we chose sidewalk in between to extend that passable path? And that is what is represented as those 14 miles of purple on the map you have. Based on how this goes, we are prepared with another round of additional sidewalks that we could seek funding for in the future to add to this list, depending on, again, we'll monitor this process and seek feedback on how it goes. Outreach and engagement. One of the things we heard during the Bloomberg process was, I don't know that everybody knows that this is their responsibility to clear the sidewalks adjacent to their property. And what does that look like? So this fall, we will be doing, and we will continue to do, not just this fall, but beyond, a detailed campaign to get the word out. So things like our new newsletter that goes into everybody's household, of course, View from the Curb. We already have a website set up, and so we'll have lots of information on there. We'll do some targeted outreach to landlords and building managers through our rental registration program. We have already started to reach out to neighborhood associations and will continue to do so as a way to spread information. We'll use community bulletin boards and community partners to help spread the word about the importance of sidewalks year-round in the city of Kalamazoo. Now, we know that there are instances of folks that understand it's their responsibility but aren't physically able to clear their sidewalks. And so staff has set out to explore what programs already exist to provide that support service. And so we are in the process of, I am working with Marvila Vincent and her staff, as well as my staff, to reaching out to neighborhood associations, community partners, senior support services, faith-based organizations, and we have been in touch with 211 to understand what exists now. Are they hearing that people need help? Do they get common requests? What do they do? And so we're in the process of compiling all of that information so we can be able to provide, if at least a start of a clearinghouse for where the information exists. If there is a gap in that information and those services don't exist, then we will work to support these organizations in figuring out how those services can exist. So next steps, obviously, first reading tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the changes to Chapter 33. Outside of that, we are going to continue to have conversations with the community, especially large groups that we think will help us share this information throughout the community. We will be coordinating internally our pilot snow clearing project, which we're pretty excited about, and getting that underway. We will ensure that our properties are properly maintained this winter, work with community partners, and importantly, we need to start noticing now. That's why we're talking about snow in the summer, right? Because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time before the first snowfall to get out to the community and share all of this information. There are both noticing requirements in the ordinance itself, those existed before, but we want to make sure that we do even more than putting a notice in the Gazette, which is what's required. And of course, internal, as we update our processes, make sure that our staff are trained with our tools and working together across public services and community planning and economic development to field complaints and help manage how they get processed moving forward, working with 311, making sure scripts are updated and so forth. And so with that, I'm happy to answer questions, and hopefully I was brief enough and clear enough for you.
Thank you very much, Planner Anderson. Very helpful. I appreciate that. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you for the presentation on this. It's really interesting. I was just thinking back to this, and I think maybe one of my first meetings with administration was with COO Lamb at Walnut and Park, talking about this very issue. I was just thinking about that. I don't know how I forgot about that, but it's been a pervasive long-term issue that our community has grappled with, right? I mean, you balance the fact that we know that we need to make a more interconnected community, and this is a major inhibitor to that because a huge portion of our year has snow on it, and you think of it as kind of like a body with arteries, and if I just went and snipped one of my arteries that leads to my heart, well, there ends the body, right, of the whole. And so it's the same with our sidewalks, and you might have 40 people who live on a block, but if 2 or 3 people decide to participate, it's not an interconnected community. But in the same respect, like you say, you're grappling with the challenge of what do you do for people who can't afford snow removal, maybe have health conditions that prevent it. We don't want it to be something that's disproportionately impacting people who have circumstances that make it that they can't, more so than an affluent household or somebody who's more physically able-bodied to do it. Couple questions for you though as well. So like what about scenarios where you have, and I don't want to get into too minutia, but this is Michigan, so these scenarios are probably going to happen. So you have a scenario where there's long-term snowfall beyond 48 hours.
Sure.
Right? So what do you do in those situations? Is there a way to clarify that says if there's long-term snow, when the clock starts?
Sure. So we did a lot of debating about how carefully we define that trigger in the ordinance. As we do today, we'll continue to do, if we have a series of snow events that are coming, one after the other, we will be true to that 48 hours when we really get
Once
the pause.
It ceases.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yes. Okay.
We do hope that people are clearing in between, but in terms of what we are going to enforce, we'll be true to the 48 hours after that series of days happens. Mm-hmm. We understand even with, our streets, where we're plowing our streets, when there's multiple days of snow, right, we keep going, and sometimes you need it to stop in order to catch up. And so we understand the functionality of that.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And another scenario I was just thinking about is that there are many circumstances in Michigan where you would potentially have heavy snowfall where it may not be safe for people to be outdoors. So a couple of scenarios I was thinking about is the polar vortex, right? If you have minus 40 wind chill levels, people should not be outside, right? Or another example is there's a major ice storm, like where we have limbs all over the place, where there's power lines down, and it's not safe for people to be outside.
Yep.
What about those kind of scenarios?
Sure. In the same way, I think there's a level of understanding that has to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our inspectors are also not going out in that weather
Mm-hmm.
to do their rounds, to inspect based on complaints. So just like the multiple days of snow, I think there's a level of understanding on how we work to enforce that ordinance. It's no different than right now, if there's a major storm and there's lots of branches down, the curb lawn enforcement, right, for branches that are, or other debris that falls within the curb lawn, doesn't happen the next day, right? There's a level of understanding for what happens in nature and in around us, a bit of common sense enforcement for, or application of the ordinance.
Third scenario I was just thinking of as well is that on major roadways, so maybe this fits into kind of the calculus of which routes get plowed, but I know there are a number of areas where there's residential areas where it's on a major road. I'm thinking like Westnedge or Cork, and you have more plow traffic that's going through, so you can envision somebody who just, you know, did their citizenly duty to plow or to shovel their walkway, and then the plow goes with all this heavy snow and dumps it right on that route. So is that kind of fitting into the thought process of which areas would maybe be prioritized?
And we know that happens, right? We have places where the sidewalk is at the back of curb, or not, the curb lawn is not very, very deep. The city has spent time working with plow drivers to be as, you know, careful as possible, but those things are just going to happen. And it's not a completely perfect system. So then, you know, what do you do, right? And so we are constantly asking ourselves, well, when this happens, what does it mean, right? Are there areas that, you know, that should be considered part of our priority areas because that is a common occurrence? So Westnedge and Park will be one of our priority areas this year that we try plowing.
Either way, you know, these are just kind of minutiae questions, but definitely something I wanted to make sure that people know that we're thinking about. I applaud you and the team for your work doing this, because again, this is one of these like long intergenerational issues that have just kind of plagued our community. And you know, not everyone's going to be happy, and not every block is going to be plowed, but just the fact that you're talking about adding additional 14 miles, in my view, is a huge win in the win column for our community and heading in the right direction. And if there's any motivation for you and the team to go back as you're working on this and you're hearing, you know, naysayers and people who are beating you up about this, I had a chance to talk to the Dean of Students at Western. The Dean of Students is the person who calls the families when a student is killed, you know, on some campus or near campus type thing. And she was thanking me, but really thanking all of you for the work that you're doing, because she said that the work that you all are doing on West Michigan Avenue is going to undoubtedly save lives and prevent those calls from her having to make to families to tell them that their child was either killed or injured on those major roadways. There's no doubt in my mind that this kind of work is going to further continue that impact and hopefully save lives from people. And so just keep up the great work, and thank you for making this a priority.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Yeah, Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Planner Anderson. I was happy to see that there's such a robust marketing campaign planned for getting that outreach and education out there. As a fairly recent, you know, first-time homeowner myself, you know, I can admit that there's a lot of ordinances and, you know, rules, you know, that I'm still getting comfortable with myself. And before I think we can, you know, start to be more strict on that enforcement, that outreach and education is required to raise that awareness. A couple of questions. Is there a minimum height of snow that kind of triggers that expectation of snow removal, whether that's a 1/4 inch or, like you mentioned, do we need to be able to clearly see, you know, pavement on the sidewalk? And then secondly, it sounds like we're moving away from the letter system that we had. I was wondering if that included any notification letters or warning letters for first-time infractions, I would say.
Sure. So we reviewed a lot of ordinances from around the country, north half of the country, that deal with snow. And some set minimum amounts, others did not. We chose not to. We don't now. We just say within 48 hours we'd like it clear down to the pavement. As it relates to, is there kind of a warning now for first-time offenders? The answer is no, there is not. Whether we are doing it under our old system where we sent the letter and then waited, or we do it under how we're trying to enforce it now, which is, you know, we write a ticket if we inspect it and find that it's not there. There's not a warning for first time.
Thanks.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Planner Anderson. I'm just going to kind of piggyback off of what Commissioner Wilson said when we say that there's no warning when we go out there and clear it for them and charge them, right?
Say that again?
So like if we pass a new ordinance, we're just going to go out there and clean it, and then they're just going to get a bill.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the warning would be the notice that we embark on now to spread the word throughout the community. It's similar to how we enforce our parking rules, right? We have signs on the edge of the community that say ordinance says no parking between 2 and 6 unless otherwise signed. The curb lawn, I referenced that earlier. Right now, if you have debris and other things within the curb lawn, and a complaint is received and an inspection done to find it, we cause that whatever that material is to be cleared, and that charge is passed on to the property owner. So it follows similar processes that we do now for some other infraction items in the public way.
Okay, thank you for that. I was just thinking that, as Commissioner Wilson said, first-time home buyer. I mean, I got in trouble. I put a Christmas tree out there on the yard, and I didn't know that ordinance had changed. So I do appreciate the thorough and being proactive and giving out the information to the residents before. You said that you got some great information from Mimi about how many calls were particular to this clearing of the snow. Has 3-1 received, or if you know that, from 2020 to about 2023?
Sure. I knew you were going to ask that question, and I meant to go back and look. I think it's safe to say dozens each year. And some of them are repeat callers, who are seeing the same sidewalks over again. I will say for the most part, they are spread across all neighborhoods, and both business and residences. And if you look over the years, often there are repeat offenders or properties that are called on, year after year after year, at least in the 5 years that I reviewed.
Okay. 4
years I reviewed.
So I'm grateful and I'm thankful that we have acknowledged as a city that we weren't doing our part when it comes to enforcing these ordinances. We recognize that, and we're trying to put some changes in place. With the new 14 miles of sidewalk going in, us now planning on, taking control of removing the snow from, you said it was Westnedge, starting with the Westnedge and Park area. How do you feel your team is with capacity when it comes to doing that?
Sure. So, I should defer to Director Baker because it is his team. However, for this project, I can say that the special request that we received through the Foundation for Excellence to do this pilot snow clearing project will give us the capacity to hire an outside contractor to do this work. If we wanted to do this in-house, and this is something that we grappled with, what does a pilot look like? How do we start to do this? We would need equipment. We would need, full-time employees who would have benefits, and they would need training. And so it's a little more complicated to ramp up that kind of system, especially for just testing it out to see how it works and what areas we should be doing. So which is why we chose to go the route of an outside contractor. We've had a lot of conversations internally amongst departments that manage city properties to make sure that we are all on the same page, whether it's, again, Parks and Rec, our Police and Fire Service. CPED owns a variety of properties through the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, to make sure that we are all aware of what's going on and can figure out our own, review our own capacities to get the work done.
Thank you. And so this is our first reading of the ordinance. And I know you said that we're going to be contracting with some outside businesses and things like that. Do you think maybe, when you bring this back to the commission, you might have an estimate of maybe what those fees would be? I mean, because right now, we had a fee of where it was $50, and then it would increase going up there. I mean, are we looking at, some of these homeowners, if they don't pay attention to what's really happening, is it going to be $20, $100, just kind of
Sure.
whatever kind of funds you could find?
We will not have the contract. We're just preparing to go out for an RFP. So we would not have that, especially if this comes back next week. as I think it is currently slated. What I can do is do some calls to figure out, about what, the cost per lineal foot of sidewalk, right, to get an idea that way. The cost, the cost depends on the action, right? So when curb lawn infractions are cleaned up, a whole tree or, lots of, you might need a huge truck, you might need the back of a pickup truck to manage the item, and so the charges are accordingly. But we can talk about what might be an average amount, right, for an area of sidewalk.
Okay,
If
so
that, helps kind of get an understanding. So right now, it's $50 for the first offense, and then it increases over time.
Okay.
And so just to kind of give a sense of ranges. And I guess in that sense, the property owner is paying in the punitive way, but we aren't necessarily getting the result.
For the homeowner to do that.
Right, that's still not necessarily being cleared, but the property owner is paying the fine or the punishment associated with it.
Okay. Are we going to put out we are going to put out the RFPs?
We are in the
for
process of
organizations?
putting that out. Yeah, we want to make sure that we do it soon, so we can have the opportunity to get a number of rates, options. So that is expected to go out shortly.
Awesome. And, I saw in here that, we're definitely going to look at organizations that we currently work with, neighborhood associations, community partners, senior support services, faith-based organizations, the 211 Griffin Place. I want to add on there any school or anything where our youth might need to get volunteer hours, something like that. So that was just one thing I was thinking, to bring the youth in. And you think about that, older individual might be out there, the youth may, chit-chat with them for a while. That also brings comfort and companionship for a little bit.
We did hear anecdotally from many of the people that we talked to, I do my block, right? I have time in the morning, so I do the whole thing, or I do my neighbor's property because I know they cannot physically. So we did hear, without not talking about a formal program, but we did hear a number of people say, when it snows, we kind of all go out together, which is heartwarming.
Vice Mayor Hess.
I was just going to say that, Christina. Absolutely, Commissioner Decker, I agree with everything that you brought forward, but this is a change. This is a change, and I would ask that our community not fear this change, that this is a change for the better, because we're focusing on a pedestrian network, not just in the summertime, not just when the bike lanes are good, but pedestrian and non-motorized network. And so thank you for bringing this forward to us. And I would just call it an opportunity to increase community, just like what you've said. It's an opportunity. Back in the 60s, when it snowed, everyone came out with their snow shovels. And my brother went around the neighborhood, and people just gave. Is this an opportunity to do that? Or is this also an opportunity to have young people be entrepreneurs and start with an entrepreneurial business? Like, go to the neighbors and say, do you want me to clear your sidewalk for the winter time? But it's just an opportunity. I'd rather not see it seen as a punishment by the city, because it's everyone buying into our community, which we all have charge of. So thank you for doing this, and I appreciate your work.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Planning Industry, just one more quick question. So we're going to focus on West Edgen Park, right?
So there are a number of streets that are going to be included. I know, and I will provide you all with a larger copy of the map. Director Baker made it. It's lovely. I'm sorry that I shrunk it down. I call out West Edgen Park because that is the longest stretch that we're doing. If you are able to see on the map, there are parts of West Main, Douglas, and a variety of other locations that will be added as part of those 14 miles. Again, we looked at what were some of the corridors that we know have high pedestrian traffic, have bus service, maybe have a school off of them, what are those criteria? And then the second thing we thought through was if we added a couple of blocks or some distance, would we be connecting two areas that are shoveled through other means, whether it's us or an institution, such that we are lengthening the network? So those were some of the lenses through which we viewed the work.
So where would you, so if you're on Westnedge, are you going to start at Westnedge? So you're going to start from Kilgore maybe and go all the way down, or
Sure.
Corp Street?
So,
when does it begin and when would it end?
It is Westnedge and Park through North Side, downtown, Vine, and South Side. It's right now scheduled to go to just about where Westnedge and Park merge. So from the very north end of the city limits all the way down. So it would touch all of those neighborhoods.
You said, Commissioner Decker? For now? You're good for now. Commissioner Praedel?
Just that was something I wanted to make sure to lift up as well. When I was knocking on doors in neighborhoods in November last year, and really 4 years before that as well, Oakwood neighborhood, on their bus routes, you really have to go out to the major roads to catch a bus. And that route to get to those major roads is very hilly. And I know that's been something that Cheryl Lord has really advocated on behalf of the neighborhood. And there were quite a few neighbors that also mentioned that as well, that now that we have those really great new sidewalks that have been installed along that as well, I wonder if that's something to give consideration to as well as you're finalizing routes and
Cheryl
maps.
and her residents participated in the Bloomberg process because, again, we had heard repeatedly from Cheryl and from her residents that this was a challenge. It was not happening and was preventing residents from being able to get out to the major roads to the north and east of the neighborhood in order to get the bus. So it was one of the neighborhoods that we worked with during this process to help do some of that background and understanding of the key issues.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right, lots of good questions. Thank you so much for ably handling all the questions that the commission had. Seeing no more from the commission right now, now's an opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to comment on this item. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment?
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident. I would like to, well, I appreciate among the changes proposed that I didn't catch before is that the responsibility for the occupant of rental properties to maintain their sidewalks is being taken out, particularly in the Vine neighborhood. The property management companies that oversee rental properties are some of the worst offenders. So it will be good to see some of those rental properties, the management companies take responsibility. Also, sometimes I forget what I want to say. So let me clarify that this will, that there will not be city staff actively looking for sidewalks that are in violation. My understanding of the presentation is that someone will only get this enforced against them if there's a complaint received from the citizens. That's your understanding? That there will only be enforcement if a citizen complaint is made. I'm guessing that's what I'm understanding. So please clarify that. The timing of this consideration this week and next week in August is coincidental because it was 10 years ago this month in South Westnedge Park during a KZoo Park summer cinema showing of the movie Frozen that I talked to Bobby Hopewell about this problem of the sidewalk snow removal. So 10 years to a solution, that's efficiency and government for you. Now I did email the commissioners this afternoon my thoughts on this. I do have two concerns. One is, wasn't mentioned, but we are encouraging people, in addition to removing the snow and ice from the sidewalks, even after you get cleared down to the pavement, we're encouraging them to put salt on the sidewalks. And this runs against what we're trying to do with like the road salt, to not have all that salt running off into lakes like Asylum Lake. People wear these shirts, Michigan, Lake Michigan, salt-free since 1837. Yeah, you did forget about all the road salt. So I want us to rethink the fact that we're going to be encouraging people at a much higher level to be adding more salt runoff. Personally, I don't like walking through the salt. It damages both my shoes and my pant legs, even more when there's wet water. Also, we need to ask, where does the city's authority to compel people to maintain city property end? Okay, so the city wants property owners to mow the curb lawn, city property, snow shovel the sidewalks. What's next? Is the city going to require people to mow the lawns at parks? Attorney Leal, please tell us where the city's power on this ends. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment on this topic? Seeing no more comments, the recommended action is a motion to offer the ordinance for first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Hess.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion, commissioners. All right, lots of good questions. I appreciate that. There's a gentleman on the dais, I'm sure, who could beat me when it comes to time frames, but just taking a moment to reflect on Mr. Messer's comment on 10 years, this is one of the things I was very interested in accomplishing in 2005, which we talked about then, which I believe is 19 years ago. So I got 9 years on you there, and perhaps you have discussed that at meetings prior to that, I'm sure. Yes. So here we are, hopefully offering up a solution to what has been a long-term challenge. And I will say that outside of everything else and what we're talking about, the details here, for those of us that are lucky enough to have property or reside in property during the wintertime, I think shoveling that sidewalk is like it's a public demonstration of saying, I care about the community. That's what it is. I mean, and literally it is, you drive by, it's as obvious as it could be. You have gone out in front and you basically say, I care about the people that are going to walk in front of my house. And I mean, that's a strong statement. And I think, Vice Mayor House, as you reflected, that is a ripple. That is kind of a sense of being engaged with your community that is demonstrated in not a theoretical, but a practical way. So I appreciate that effort. Clerk Barling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradle?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney?
Yes.
Commissioner Decker?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next, reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzma.
I do not have an official report this evening, but I do want to take this opportunity to thank the folks that participated, city staff that participated in the Bloomberg initiative. I remember when we first were awarded that, and the hope of innovation and what was to come we're seeing tonight. So I really appreciate the hard work and the great work that was done that will lead to this change. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzma. So now we are to unfinished business. So I've got a little help here in terms of what did we actually do back at our meeting, which seems so long ago, on July 15th, and then what are we talking about doing this evening? So at the July 15th meeting, the following motion was made by Commissioner Pradle and seconded by Vice Mayor Hess. Quote, a motion to adopt ordinances to amend the sections within Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 36, the traffic code related to overnight parking, meter rates, and operational hours of meters, and adopt a resolution adopting a parking fee schedule for the city of Kalamazoo. That was the motion that was made almost a month ago. So after much discussion, as we all remember, a motion to postpone the item until tonight's meeting was made, seconded, and approved. The pending motion to adopt the ordinances and resolution is carried over until tonight's meeting, which means the item is at the same place as before the postponement, at the point of voting on the motion to adopt. However, staff have broken up the one item from July 15th into 3 items, consistent with suggestions from commissioners. As a result, the pending motion to approve does not correlate to the 3 items on tonight's agenda. So, to move forward with the items as presented on tonight's meeting agenda, the commissioner who made the original motion to adopt the ordinances and resolution, Commissioner Pradel, must request the withdrawal of the pending motion.
Mayor, I ask permission to withdraw my pending motion to adopt.
Thank you so much. We don't need a second or a vote. That's not required at this point. So, commissioners, unless there is an objection, this motion is withdrawn. All right, seeing no objection, City Manager Ritzma, please proceed with item J1.
Adoption of ordinances to amend the sections within Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 36, the Traffic Code, related to overnight parking, and adoption of a resolution adopting parking fees for the overnight parking permit program for the City of Kalamazoo.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Do you have a staff report planned for this?
Yes. Ask Christina to come forward again, and I'm not going to say brief. I'll just say presentation.
Good to see you back, Planner Anderson.
This actually will be brief. I'm not going to repeat everything that we talked about at length about a month ago. I do have a couple slides, 1 to 3 slides for each of our 3 items tonight, just to kind of answer some questions. So the first motion in front of you tonight is to approve a series of ordinances that set up an overnight parking permit system, as well as the resolution that sets the fee for those for that permit. Uh-oh. I don't know what the magic was last time, but there we go. So, overnight parking is already permitted downtown. It's just permitted in our 2 ramps. This adding the ability to use underutilized, actually just not even utilized, space between the curbs of our streets at night is just a new opportunity for parking in downtown. The rate structure is similar to that in the ramps. It's not meant to compete. It's just meant to give choices within the system. And, we talked about setting up the possibility of 2-tiered system for pricing, depending on your location, but those are details of the program that staff will be working out. What's in front of you tonight, really at the heart of it is, setting up through the ordinance changes the allowance for a permit system, and then establishing the fee for that permit system, which includes not only the monthly permit, but also guest passes, which is pretty common for cities that have a similar system. You want to make sure that there are guest passes associated with it as well.
Thank you very much, Planner Anderson. I presume that you are available for questions from commissioners. Any questions for Planner Anderson on this first item, J1? Seeing none, and I'm waiting. You all set? Need another moment? All right, great. Thank you so much. With no questions, now is the opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers who'd like to comment on this item related to overnight on-street parking to come forward and comment on it. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and whether you live in the city.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Artema, and I do live in the city of Kalamazoo. I appreciate the work that's been done on this update to the ordinance. We started talking about this a number of years ago. It's another one of those projects that's been out there for a while. The reason I'm here to support this initiative is it allows the ability to add housing downtown without necessarily the cost of new parking. And so it opens the door for potentially some more affordable units and some smaller projects that wouldn't have to have dedicated off-street parking adjacent to or on their own property. And just to put that into context, if you were to build, say, a 6 to 8 unit apartment building in downtown Kalamazoo, right now you would need to, in essence, be located near one of the ramps, the public ramps, or accommodate for those roughly 8 to 12 parking spaces off-site, which means tearing down houses next door or using some of the land to accommodate the storage of those cars, which is about 350 to 400 square feet per space. So I think the ability to take the existing asphalt that's in place right now and is used during the daytime and allocate it to parking overnight is a great opportunity for our city, for our community. It's efficient. Again, it minimizes the need to add parking. There still will be needs for parking off-street to accommodate housing, but we have a downtown that's transitioning from an office-based downtown. That parking system was set up for that decades ago. Now the residential population is growing, and some of it's here already and continuing to grow. And one way to help accommodate that growth is to allow for the overnight parking on the streets. I think it also allows for the ability for some of our restaurants and bars downtown to have an option to provide to people to leave their cars downtown on city streets. And I think some of the details of that portion of this program are still to be worked out, along with other details, as Planner Anderson mentioned. But just the concept of being able to start that process and start that conversation is critical. So appreciate the work that's been done on this and excited to see where it could go for growth in downtown Kalamazoo. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to comment on this item at this time? Seeing no more comments, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance and resolution. Is there a motion? So moved. Motion made by Commissioner Cooney.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Pradel. Any further discussion, commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item J2. City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of an ordinance to amend the Kalamazoo City Code, Chapter 36-175, related to parking system updates, including the use of technology in system operations and enforcement and operational hours of meters.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma, and welcome back, Planner Anderson.
A couple of details on this next motion in front of you. Again, this is Chapter 36-175. A number of the updates to this ordinance are housekeeping in nature. We have not updated these ordinances in quite some time. Parking and parking management and enforcement have changed leaps and bounds since then. So things like pay stations and kiosks and mobile apps and virtual pay systems, we want to make sure that those are included in our ordinance language. Second major change is the removal of the meters will run between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And instead, we're going to rely on the traffic engineer to set the hours of meter operation based on best practice and study and their knowledge, as well as sign regulation and the number of regulated spaces that exist within downtown. This is what the traffic engineer does now throughout the city and in downtown, except prior to this ordinance change, there was a limitation on meters running from 8 to 5. So it still remains with the traffic engineer to have this be their responsibility. We are just removing that time limit that was listed specifically in the ordinance. And let's talk a little bit about that. So again, code up to date with current technologies and parking management practices. Kind of just the housekeeping item. When we manage timing and pricing in a public parking system, one of the things that we're doing is encouraging parking turnover. regulate those, and you think about it as a holistic system. So you have ramps where people may stay longer. You have on-street parking that tends to be short and fast. You have surface lots scattered around. And you think about all those things and you regulate time and pricing to give people choices based on distance to get to a store or restaurant and how much they are willing to pay or if they would like to park for free. So our current practice of meters end at 5 actually translates to, after 3:30, that space is likely full. Because after 3:30, you pay for your 90 minutes, which gets you to 5, or if there's no payment there and it's a 90-minute regulation, you can stay in that space the rest of the evening. You can stay in that space till we start, to the overnight parking, would kick in prior to the approval of the ordinance that you just reviewed. So on one hand, we're encouraging downtown businesses to stay open late. Let's create that active area. We'll have our restaurants open late, have our stores open late. But we're not supporting that with our parking regulations because we're not supporting that turnover. We're not supporting those spaces, a certain percentage of spaces to be available. I included with both this item and the next one some of those parking principles. It's hard to differentiate timing and pricing because they do go hand in hand. If we do want businesses to stay open later, we need to make sure that we're regulating our on-street parking accordingly. And that is thinking about shifting the time that the meters operate to focus on that turnover later into the evening. There were several questions about implementation last time, and so with both this item and the next one, I do talk about implementation. So the longer hours, the implementation of longer hours, staff proposes that on the Kalamazoo Mall, when we install the kiosks, parking meters later this month, that longer hours will go into operation with those meters on the mall. And it would not go in anywhere else in the near term, but we would undertake a study to understand where else it makes sense to have meters run longer based on, again, the same principles that we're thinking about the mall, businesses that are staying open later, and what does that look like? So we'll embark on a study to understand what that looks like block by block throughout downtown, and would look to make changes next year related to that. And that's all I have for this item.
Thank you again. Questions for Planner Anderson, Commissioner Pradel?
This is just kind of a follow-up. I know Tony Kennedy brought this up during public comment, but I think it is a valid point for people who might be concerned about this or not supportive of some of these changes. I know we already do a lot of after-action review of how it's impacting things and assessing whether it's unintentionally done harm somewhere or something like that. Can you just describe how that process would work and if that's something that we would already be doing
Sure.
to make sure that it's working as planned?
So I think it's safe to say that with any initiative that the city does, city staff do, we are monitoring what's happening and are ready and able to make small changes, big changes to make sure that it's functioning in the way that it was intended to. And this is no different than that. We are regularly in contact with businesses downtown. We have a new, not so new anymore, Megan, downtown business coordinator who is regularly in all the shops talking to everybody. So we, in the anecdotal bucket of how things are doing, right? We are in constant contact with businesses. We participate in the chamber meetings to understand what is going on and how things are working. So, in terms of feedback in the anecdotal way, we have that covered. Park Kalamazoo monitors the parking, right? Many people use the excuse me, Park Mobile and other apps, which allow us to monitor what's going on with the system. We can both monitor it based on, spaces that are being used in a block, right, as well as revenues and so forth. So we're able to monitor it from a technical standpoint as well. When we go out and think about doing studies in an area, we employ a third method, which is bodies on the ground, right? Let's go out and look. How many spaces are being used in this block? What does it look like? Have conversations with our parking enforcement team. What are you seeing? And monitor that way.
I know we brought this up before, but just wanted to make sure to share this again. But a concern that I do have is with the potential that the enforcement could be expanded to 8 p.m. Our public meetings start at 5 or 7 p.m. I think maybe like a easy solution would even just be a signage that just is displayed outside of like the parking meters outside of City Hall that says something like, when there's a public meeting in place, after 5 p.m. or something, parking is not enforced or something like that. I recognize that there is an inherent risk that somebody might say, hey,
Free parking for the
free
rest of the
parking
night.
if I walk
Yeah.
2 blocks from City Hall. But I think if you limited it to say it's only when a public meeting is taking place, that it would be too hard for people to know, remember when to take advantage of that. So.
Sure. I will say, as I've been trying to schedule Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 meetings, there is a commissioner board meeting almost every night of the week throughout the whole month. There's just a few days where there aren't meetings. I know they don't all occur in this building, but many of them do. I hear you, and I am more than happy to work with Park Kalamazoo to figure out, and our parking consultant to figure out what the right language is, so we're not inadvertently creating spaces like we do by shutting the meters off at 3:30, and there they are for the rest of the night, and it's free to them. And that is a hard thing that would be hard for us to enforce, right? We don't know if somebody's at the meeting or if they walk downtown. What if they got there a little early and, ran to Rocket Fizz real quick before the meeting? Would we then, would we enforce on them because we said, you must be going to a meeting? Anyway, my point is, I'm sure there's language that we can come up with that makes sense. I don't know what that is right now, but I do understand that is something we need to include in our study when we go block by block through the downtown to figure out what are the hours of those meters and when they should be in operation.
I mean, I think I definitely hear about how many of these public meetings that we have here, but in the same respect, like you described, many of these happen at nighttime, which are, there are many that happen during the day as well, but many of them happen in the evening, and especially the boards and commission that sometimes have the most consequential impact on public citizens and want to share input. And, I think the difference is right now, most of them, if they're happening after 5 o'clock, it's kind of a non-issue, and it will become an issue potentially if it gets pushed till 8 o'clock. So definitely something worth considering.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. So, 3 things. 1, I am in favor of putting those machines in the mall and regulating parking in the mall, increasing making parking instigated there. That's not what's being proposed here. It's much wider than that. I do understand that the issue that we need money to support parking downtown. When I look at the figures about how much it's costing us each year, it's very troubling. But I do have a great concern that with all the roads being dug up now, the discouragement for people coming downtown, that it is not the time to do this. And I have a specific concern about the ordinance 36-175 Part B. Here's what it says. The traffic engineer is authorized to determine, designate, modify, or change by traffic control orders parking zones on city streets and in all parking facilities. My computer just went blank. Okay, there it goes. The days of the week, hours of the day, and the intervals of time for which parking is permissible, as well as for which paid parking is required in each parking zone. I think that takes us completely out of the picture. That says the traffic engineer can decide we're going to charge people from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and then has to come back to us. He can say we're going to have no 90-minute free parking on any streets that he wants. And I don't think that's too much power for him. I think these are important issues for the city, and they should be decided by the people who are representing the city up here. So I cannot support the second one because I think it's too general and too vague, and that's not what the ordinance says.
Sure. So the traffic engineer has that responsibility now. The only thing that is limited now is that it says in downtown meters run 8 to 5. The traffic engineer, we've done a lot of updating of parking throughout the city over the last few years. We adjusted many of the signs in the North Side neighborhood, the no stopping standing signs, working with the North Side neighborhood. That was by traffic control order with the traffic engineer. We redid all of the parking in the Vine neighborhood based on their neighborhood plan. There was a desire to add overnight parking and increase the amount of on-street parking, like review all the streets and their width to make sure that we were maximizing the opportunity for on-street parking. All of that was done through traffic control orders of the traffic engineer. And so I just want to be clear that it's not a new responsibility. That's how parking has always been handled. The change that's being proposed here tonight is to allow meters to not require meters to only be 8 to 5. And further, I would say, sure, we could have a staff member that goes out and does a rogue action that says, you know, we're going to have 24-hour meters, right? Or whatever, right? But we operate based on a plan. Excuse me. We operate based on the strategic blueprint for downtown parking, which has experts. We work with Park Kalamazoo to work out parking, to work out rates and timing and where meters go and how we support businesses. And we work to follow that plan. If we didn't, you would certainly hear about it. And, you know, I don't think that action would stand for very long. So I think there's a level of commitment that staff has to work with, thank you, to work with plans and implement those plans in a responsible way.
So, Christina, what I hear you saying is we already got the power to do this. So why are you asking us to raise the hours? Because you already have the power to do it, and you don't need us to do this. I read the whole parking overall blueprint, and there's a lot of really good things in there. But this is just one little piece of that, which doesn't take in a lot of the other recommendations that were in there.
Right. Not all of the recommendations in the downtown blueprint for parking require ordinance changes. Right. Some of them are physical changes. So things like review, and Tony brought this up, and I talked to Tony before the meeting too. Review of all of the accessible spaces in downtown, and to make sure that they are signed and located, spread throughout downtown so they're accessible. You know, that's something that the traffic engineer is able to do with signs and study. The blueprint talks about, are there driveways that are no longer being used or they're duplicative, and could we, because everywhere there's a driveway, that means there's no parking in that space and no parking adjacent to the space. Are there driveways that we want to talk with property owners that they're not using that are obsolete to close so we can increase the amount of on-street parking? The blueprint also talks about putting meters in some places and not in others, right? It talks about adjusting pricing. It talked about the permit system. So the blueprint itself has a wide variety of things, not of which all require ordinance changes. And while the traffic engineer does have these powers today, staff does need to come to make this request to you, because the ordinance also specifically says meters will run 8 to 5. So that is required to make that change if we want to allow meters to run later into the evening in certain locations.
I don't find where it says 8 to 5. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just telling you I understand what you're saying. And I think the overall plan is very good, but I'm not going to vote for it because I think this takes a segment of it, and I think this puts too much power in the hands of one person. And if this person already has this power, then we don't need a vote on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Attorney Leal?
Christina, I have a question. Aren't the traffic orders issued by the traffic engineer appealable to a higher body? I don't know if it's the traffic commission or this City
Sure.
Commission.
I may rely on Director Baker. We do have a traffic board, but Director Baker will be able to give you exact details.
Oh. Could I?
Good evening, Your Honor.
Just a second. Did you have a further
I
question?
would like
Commissioner?
to know, when was the last time the traffic board met?
So thank you very much, Your Honor. Thank you, Attorney Leal. So, two questions on the floor. If I may, I'm going to try to answer the first one. I'll get to yours, Commissioner Cooney. So, first of all, the traffic engineer has the authority to issue those traffic control orders. So those traffic control orders are essentially what's needed to back that sign. The sign is just a metal sign that traffic control orders, posted with the city clerk, and that kind of creates that legal backing for that change in that parking. Those decisions to support the traffic engineer can be supported by that traffic board. And then, and this gets to your question, Commissioner Cooney, that traffic board meets on an as-needed basis when there are specific requests for changes in parking. And so that when those come forward, then that can be taken into consideration by the traffic engineer.
That's not answering my question. I would like to know the last time the traffic board met.
It's been some time. It's been
like a year?
What's that?
A year?
It may be. I know it's
More.
been longer than that. And the reason for that, Commissioner Cooney, was there is not a specific agenda. The traffic board does not meet regularly. The traffic board must meet if there's an agenda item. And so that last time the traffic board met, we made a lot of changes during COVID to create loading zones and move a lot of parking around downtown. And that was all supported by the traffic board. So the traffic board could meet upon request to consider some changes to a lot of the parking as it sits. So thank you.
Many of the cases that the traffic board, at least during my 7 years here, have been residential requests where neighbors have gathered together and banded together to change parking on their block. Those were most of the cases that were reviewed when the board has met over the last, again, I've been here 7 years.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Planner Anderson, to you and your team for taking the time to really remove a lot of the ambiguity that was causing some discomfort last session, especially surrounding implementation. I believe that, pushing this to 25 and some of the other dates that we have in here as well allows us some time to really, review and get through this season of construction at least. So I appreciate that. Another question that I had, so it's my understanding that a lot of this ordinance change is largely meant to offset the, I guess, burden that we're experiencing as a city from the 90-minute parking and the ramps, the free 90-minute parking that is. So I just wanted to hear from you, in the event that this ordinance isn't passed, how likely is it that the 90-minute of free parking in the garages would disappear?
Sure. So let me say something first, and then I'm going to. These changes, the parking plan, the blueprint for downtown parking was done, I think it was in 2019. Mm-hmm. When we did the master plan and we had retail expert Robert Gibbs come from Gibbs Planning Group come and talk to the downtown, all of these changes that are before you tonight were talked about. So the initial impetus for all these changes was the economic health of downtown. It has taken us a little while to get here. We now have a second issue, which is the fiscal health of the system. So these changes are working on both. However, they were initially discussed and proposed purely for the better management of parking in downtown to support business health. The second item, if I could respectfully wait to answer your question on pricing until we get to the next item, which focuses on the resolution that changes the pricing, just to kind of keep things separate, if that's okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
and then secondly, to Commissioner Cooney's point on, not having one particular entity have too much power and ensuring that those checks and balances are in place. In the event that, we were to conduct a review and might want to, challenge that, how would the process work for either this body or anyone else to call the need for a traffic board meeting?
Sure. So applications are made to public services. Requests are made for a case to be heard, and that is how an agenda item is set at the traffic board. If you're taking well, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Further questions? Oh, Commissioner Wilson, are you set for now? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Vice Mayor Hess?
Planner Anderson, are you, you mentioned an annual review, and there's always an annual review. Are you able and willing to present that to this board in like a committee of the whole or something on a regular basis, to kind of dispel the fact that we're just going to do changes willy-nilly, or that this is happening for a reason, and to give us the science behind the reason, because this is math and science that I'm seeing coming before us. But I do believe that we need the ordinance update, but I think the annual update, or biannual even, to let us know what kind of changes are being made and why would be helpful.
Certainly, and we can do that. We come regularly with updates on downtown and what's going on downtown, so we can add the parking system to those presentations, and we can do those at whatever interval the commission would desire.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to add to what Vice Mayor Hess had said. We also, great information could also be sent in our Friday emails.
Just a quick reminder for us, who currently sits on the traffic board? Do you know?
Oh, the staff. There is representatives from planning, public safety, and public services. And who are you? I don't know. No, I don't know who you're pointing at, so you're going to have to say it out loud.
The park.
Oh, yeah, Park Kalamazoo. Right, Park Kalamazoo, which previously Central City.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Baker. I apologize.
All right, thank you. Other questions for city staff, Planner Anderson at this point? All right, thank you so much once again. Now is the opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to comment on this item J2. If you want to make a comment, please come forward. All right, seeing no one, basically, what are we going to do now is we need to make a motion. So, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance to amend the Kalamazoo City Code?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Hess.
Support, I guess.
Okay, supported by Commissioner Decker. Is that? Motion made by Commissioner Decker, supported by
I'll support it.
Vice Mayor Hess. The old switcheroo there. Okay. Thank you so much. Discussion, commissioners.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I think last commission meeting, we all had questions and we had doubts, and seems like there still could be a few here, but I want to appreciate Christina and her team for hearing the commission and coming back with things that I can approve, that I feel good about. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Any other discussion? Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support putting the new technology in the mall, and also charging $2 an hour in the mall. That's not what we're voting on here, and I will not vote for this because this vote would allow us to extend the hours, and I'm not ready to do that.
Yep, helpful, I appreciate that. Any other discussion, commissioners? Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
No.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item J3. City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a resolution to set an updated parking fee schedule for public parking facilities in the city of Kalamazoo.
Planner Anderson.
Thank you. This is the third and final of our parking proposals. So this is a resolution to change the rates of on-street ramps and surface lots within downtown. So again, these were changes that have always been discussed, that we need to do an update of our rates. They are not aligned with market rates, meaning what private parking facilities are charging. They're not things that we have updated. I think it was 2017 the last time that a rate change came forward. These changes were always meant to be considered with the 90-minute free in the ramp. Sorry. 90-minute free in the ramp. 90 minutes free in the ramp. We moved up the timeline for the 90 minutes free in the ramp because we were just slow in getting some of these other things together, and we heard from downtown businesses that's something that was really important, knowing that these were going to come later. So again, that push-pull between timing and pricing is what, holistically makes a system work. And you think about it not only as those two items, but also the choices that are available on street, surface lots and ramps. They're located in different locations. Some are more convenient than others. Some are less expensive than others. And then a customer can come and make a choice. Again, the goal is to encourage turnover, right? We want to accommodate as many customers as we can in a day. There's also a sweet spot that we can achieve with proper regulation that allows a certain number of spaces each block to be available. And what that does is it gives us, as we're driving down a block, we see that there's available parking, right? And that has a perception of, is there parking downtown or not? And again, this is all about providing choices. So, there's free parking and there's paid parking. The action in front of you tonight, staff, Park Kalamazoo, believe that it is the minimum action necessary to begin to shift us towards fiscal health. Because while this may have started thinking about management and proper health of the system, we know from budget review that we are in a not great space in terms of the fiscal health for the system, and there is a large amount of deferred and coming maintenance. $3.2 million by our account right now of maintenance. The parking system, it is an asset, like our water network, right? There are infrastructure elements that need to be maintained and managed, and staff that needs to be available to maintain and enforce that. And so it's everyday working of the parking system that we need to make sure that we're managing, but also the long-term health of it physically, as well as the books. I have a copy of the table that was provided to you over the weekend, an updated copy of the fiscal health, and so you have an idea of where the system is more broadly. Commissioner Wilson, I'll just answer your question now. I don't know that we can keep the 90 minutes free in the ramp if we don't come up with a balance in the other rates. The 90 minutes free is about $20,000 a month, $240,000 a year. And that's fine as long as you are balancing that out with other changes, which is, again, what was intended for us to do. So I can't say that we'll be able to keep that if we don't until we come up with some sort of balanced fiscal structure. So one of the things that we talked about last time was, okay, so how do we implement this? What does this mean? When the kiosk-style meters are installed on the mall later this month, staff proposes that we use the new hourly rate if approved this evening. So that would go from $1.75 to $2 an hour. No other meter in the city can be changed. The technology is too old. So there will be no other changes to on-street meter pricing until we go through and update the meters. That is something we would like to do. And we need to budget and come up with an implementation plan to do that. The strategic blueprint lays out what that looks like, but knowing that that is one of many budget items that we need to deal with, we have some things to work out for the exact timing, but it would be at least a year from now, if not longer, before we're able to install new meter technology, which will allow a rate change. In terms of the other changes to the surface lots and the ramps after the 90 minutes, assuming that we're able to keep it, we're proposing that these changes go into effect November 1st. This allows us to get through the construction season. So construction wraps up for the most part in the month of October. And so this allows us that breathing room to move forward after that. And I have in front of you the hourly rates, monthly rates, the daily maximum rates for the lots and the ramps, and what they are now and what's being proposed. And so again, those would go into effect November 1. If this body approves the ordinance tonight. Just for reference, I included a map of the parking system because we specifically talk about two lots, Lot 20 and Lot 1. Lot 20 is a small lot across from 400 Rose. It's Rose and Cedar. There's a small lot there that's a public lot. And Lot 1 is over by Bates Alley, Edwards, and Portage, just for your reference. And I'm happy to answer any questions related to this resolution.
Thank you, Planner Anderson. Questions? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Planner Anderson, just a real quick question. What is the capacity for how many overnight parking permits we could sell?
I can't answer that.
No. Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just trying to think of, yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
So, other questions? Comments, thoughts? No questions for Planner Anderson at this point? Vice Mayor Hess?
Sure. Quickly, in the packet, you gave us comparisons with other cities. And it seems that we are well in line with those. And so I think when people go to park, I don't know if we've been to Chicago lately, but you can't really park in Chicago for a reasonable, for $2. You really can't. And again, but then keeping that 90-minute free in the ramp has got to be key to this whole plan. And I know you've done the research with other cities, and I think Grand Rapids just increased their rates, correct?
They're a bit above us.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, yeah, I think what you've done is wonderful, so thank you.
Seeing no more questions, is there anyone here in the chambers who would like to comment on this particular item, item J3? Seeing no one, commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Decker.
Support.
supported by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion, Commissioners. Commissioner Pradel.
Just want to acknowledge that, the recent years, I feel like people have been thoroughly squeezed in every avenue of life. I mean, and I can certainly resonate and understand that it's challenging to digest when you hear decision making to increase rate, even if it is just a quarter. I am in support of this largely because of the forethought that's gone into this with the 90-minute parking and the ramps. You think about downtown, you might drive by and see dozens of spots that are open for 90-minute parking on some of the major streets, but alternatively now there are hundreds of options open in one of the 2 ramps where you have 90 minutes. And so, I'm pleased that we can still offer options for people so they can, come downtown, participate in activities downtown, and that we can offer that 90 minutes by alternatively raising these rates on other streets. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other discussion? Vice Mayor Hess.
Sure. Just like in the snow clearing discussion, I think there has to be an education of the public by this, like you mentioned before, in the City View, online, on our website, on the parking website. When we talk about Imagine Kalamazoo 2035, there has to be an ongoing conversation among all the people in this city about parking. So to have a clear understanding by the people is key.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. Other discussion? All right, seeing none there, I guess, these are always challenging discussions when we talk about increasing rates in one thing or another. That is a responsibility of the city, water rates, for example, and sewer rates. I do appreciate you mentioning, Commissioner Cooney, that, the challenging financial situation that the parking system is in, and it is in essence an enterprise fund is meant to, the users are intended to support the opportunity to park, and, that's not the situation we're in right now, which does mean that ultimately it will be everyone in the city of Kalamazoo, including all the people who never come down, who will have the privilege of supporting the parking system downtown through their general fund tax payments. So challenging situation as it relates to all that, and really as it comes down to it in terms of love you Portage, but the real downtown in Kalamazoo County happens to be in the city of Kalamazoo. And there are certain attributes to that downtown experience that are the kinds of things that people like to take advantage of, and also a big economic driver, a wealth driver for the city of Kalamazoo. And we hear about that when Jane Ghosh comes from Discover Kalamazoo and talks about where people visit. And when you're thinking about it, visitors pay those parking rates as well, which helps support our parking system, which is an asset. So here we are. I do want to say that I appreciate that there are smart people on our team that spent a great deal of time thinking about this and really trying to propose a plan that attempts to incorporate best practice thinking and things that I honestly wouldn't even think about myself necessarily when it comes to the broader parking system and how it operates. That said, now's the time to vote. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
No.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next is the opportunity. Planner Anderson, thanks for spending half the night up here in front of us on one topic or another. You, I think, relieved the presence of Director Baker having to be up here, which is a role he often plays. Commissioners, now is an opportunity for commissioner comments. Anybody who wants to kick that off this evening? Yes, thank you for being first, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not more so of a comment, just a correction on item F1. I just want to have it noted that it's the Brownfield meeting minutes that I'm always reviewing, not the Planning Commission for the 5135 resolution.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Pradel?
Sure. Just want to take a minute, Clerk Borling, so you can hear this and make sure that your team hears this as well. You know, we just got over our primary election, and we have a very, I guess, call it rich election year of a lot of activities that your team is managing. And I continue to be immensely impressed by how your team pulls it off, and pulls it off incredibly well. Everybody from the poll workers that show up at, you know, what time do they show up? Like 6 in the morning and stay till late at night, to your team that just is working around the clock to make sure that every voice counts, that everybody has an opportunity to feel safe and have access to the ability to vote in an election. Thank you to you and your team. It's always really a big joy to show up to your polling location and cast a vote. I actually goofed up this year. I had 3 children with me, and they give those little play ballots, you know, where they're circling bubbles. And so I had 3 children like saying, "Oh, I'm voting for, you know, Mama," or whatever, you know, in this bubble. And I accidentally voted incorrectly and had to spoil my ballot. And so you can imagine that was kind of embarrassing. But again, how your team manages those situations, I just am impressed with them and the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Also wanted to just really quickly wish my mom a happy birthday. I would normally be spending the evening with her, wishing her a special day, but you know, city commission business speaks, so here I am. But anyways, happy birthday, Mom. Hope you have a happy birthday.
Other commissioner comments? Yeah, Commissioner Cooney.
I just want to say I appreciate the people that came in the beginning of the meeting talking about the difficulty people have with shelter and the rents being raising the rents all over the city and the homeless people out there. And I know that the city is working really hard on that, and we just have to keep it before us. I think what we can do with the bathrooms, with the water fountains, that's very important. And I think every city in the country is grappling with this. It's a huge problem, and we just have to keep looking at it and seeing to do the best we can with it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yes, Vice Mayor Hess.
That's it. I was going to address that, but I'll piggyback on what you said, Commissioner Cooney. I want to give a shout out to our community service team of public safety, who actually works with the unhoused, along with social worker Kelsey Harness. So thank you to them for the work they do. Monthly as well, and Commissioner Cooney, you're there too, that the meetings with the unhoused providers, the nonprofits who actually really get down and dirty and do the work with the people who are struggling in our community, and to be there and to listen and to be grateful to them for doing that work. Loaves and Fishes, WMed, the Ministry with Community, the Mission, and so many more that do the work in this community. Yes, the city is a part of a solution, and so I'm just really grateful to all of those doing that work. That said, and then I'll just stay on public safety. I had the chance to do a ride-along with Officer Malcolm. Unfortunately, it was scheduled the same day as a shooting happened at Fox Ridge Apartments. She and I were the only people on patrol in the city of Kalamazoo. And so I appreciate her, and what I saw, not only from her but heard throughout the city, was our officers' commitment to their job and to their call and to what it is they mean in the city. We are very blessed to have such a brigade of people willing to do the work on behalf of the people of Kalamazoo. So thank you to all of our officers, especially Officer Malcolm. We were off for 4 weeks, Mayor, and a lot of stuff happened. I was able to attend 2 particular wonderful graduations. The first one was the change of status graduation from Urban Alliance and that's happening. It happens 4 or 5 times a year. It's an impressive and inspiring program to help people change their status from incarceration to citizenry. And it's very inspiring, and I was really blessed to be able to attend that. And then also the other graduation was the Bridging Opportunities graduation, where 8 youth ended their summer being a part of the staff of Boys and Girls Clubs, and this program, the Bridging Youth Opportunities, is Boys and Girls Clubs, Circuit Court, working with Circuit Court and with Public Safety as well. So all of those folks, all the people working with these 8 youth have turned their lives around as well. So I appreciate that, and it's an inspiring thing, great things happening in our city. And then National Night Out was last week. I appreciated the people. Ethan, Parks and Rec, shout out to you. You were in Fraze Park putting it together in the middle of the afternoon when no one saw what you were doing. Big thanks to Jay Slaby and all of the community policing officers who worked on putting out a great night and great opportunities all throughout the city of Kalamazoo. Really, really appreciate you. And then just lastly, the city of Kalamazoo, congratulations on yet another successful USTA tournament. Several weeks that overlapped with the Olympics, but I think people had a chance to watch some good tennis here in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. A few things, I guess in no particular order, but one thing I wanted to note, there was, I thought, an article worth reading. I believe it was in the Sunday Gazette featuring Ed Genesis. I don't know if anybody saw that article or not. I would say the key point in that article, which Ed made himself, and he has life experience in this, is interacting with a mother who lost her son to gun violence for a homicide that has not been solved. I think it's been a couple years now, and the heartbreak that she has living with that. Obviously, it's heartbreak enough, but the sense that there's people who know, and people probably who she interacts with, possibly even every day, who know how it happened and know who did it, and you know, for a variety of reasons, you know, through fear or whatever decision making, decide that they can't tell anybody about it, and therefore it is not resolved, and I'm sure she worries perhaps will never be resolved in that way. I mean, it's really a challenging article, and I do appreciate that Ed Genesis is doing that work of trying to work with families who've had that experience and try to encourage people in the community to be brave and come forward. That said, something that was profoundly also moving for me is that after the homicide at Fox Ridge, within a couple days, an individual who was picked up, who was charged with felony murder, I believe, and who was presumably at least arrested for the fact that he perhaps, you know, was the one who was involved in that murder in the broad daylight up in a parking lot at Fox Ridge. And right away, and I'm just going to give tons of props to our own public safety department. The video of the arrest of that individual was released virtually immediately. If anyone hasn't seen it, go online, look it up. And obviously an extremely tense situation. There's guns involved. A murder had occurred very recently. And there's a body cam video of our great public safety officers up there to, you know, engage with that person and ask them to turn themselves in. And it's a short clip, but I mean, I do not think you could ask for a more professional and humane approach to doing something so challenging, which we have seen over and over again around the country. What human being is not scared in that situation when you go in and you know someone is armed and perhaps has used that in a way that has ended someo's life? And over again we hear about shots being fired, and someone had a phone in their hand, and who knows what. And this was a perfect example of that not occurring. This gentleman did come out of the house and, was arrested by public safety. And as you see the clip, the officer, I think, turns to this young man and says something along the lines of paraphrasing, "You doing okay?" Something like that. And, I mean, just in a human way, I'm sorry I'm emotional about it, but this is the antithetical response to the unfortunate kind of responses we've been seeing around the country. This is how we want our great public safety department to work. And I'm not saying there won't be situations where it doesn't go down like that and shots are fired and gunfights occur. I mean, I'm not saying that couldn't be in our future and could not happen, but I think it just demonstrated a humanity that builds community trust, which gets me right back to Ed Genesis and that desire to have community members share what they have seen and experienced, and in order to direct people into a justice system. So thank you, Chief, and your team. Please watch that if you haven't. It was very impressive. On a different topic, we have an organization called Global Ties in Kalamazoo. It just reminds me over and over again, and I may say this, I can't remember where I've said it before, but many people that care about community, read a book called Bowling Alone some years ago, maybe it was 10 or 15 years ago, I can't remember that, which basically was kind of predicting the demise of society because no one gets together any longer, right? Bowling leagues are going away, tending rotaries going downhill, whatever. And just seeing that people aren't going to interact with each other anymore. Spend a few days here getting invited to all the kinds of things that people are doing. I mean, you literally cannot attend all the events that people are putting hours of volunteer time into. I mean, guys who give, you name it. I mean, on and on and on in Kalamazoo. I don't believe that's happening. I honestly do not believe that we're experiencing that bowling alone phenomenon. There are people who care about all kinds of things that are getting together from one end to the other in Kalamazoo. I think it's a natural inclination of human beings, but bless you, everybody who's taking the time to do that. And guess what? One of those organizations in town happens to be Global Ties. And Global Ties, used to be called Colleagues International, is bringing people here from around the world literally every other week. There's crews of people coming in. And we get to meet with them, and a lot of people in Kalamazoo, they do internships, they meet with people. And it's all based on this idea is that, although we may disagree on a vast amount of things, that the only answer for that is to get to know people, not just in Kalamazoo, but in the world as people and building relationships. And I just want to thank Jody Michaels and all the volunteers, board members that are involved with Global Ties on such a rich presence that happens in the city of Kalamazoo, where literally, I mean, if we so desire, we can sit down and have a conversation and meet with someone who we never would have had an opportunity to meet with before. It lives in a far-flung corner of this world. So I would encourage anyone to be a host. We had, I got to be part of an event where the State Department chose the city of Kalamazoo as one of two meeting places, in the country to have a gathering here in the last couple of weeks, and it was basically recognizing the amazing work that's happening in Kalamazoo. And over again, what they hear, you know, when people are coming here from who knows where, they're thinking about, oh, I want to be someplace like New York or LA or someplace you hear about. And they find that when they come to a place the size of Kalamazoo, and they're being hosted by families, they have interactions that they would never have in a big city, and everyone gets put up in a motel, that sort of thing. So that is just one of the many rich, rich opportunities that are occurring in Kalamazoo, you know, kind of helping build the kind of world that we dream we could have, although sometimes it feels like it's slipping away. So it was great to be a part of that, and great to be recognized by the State Department for this great work. So that all said, that comes back to us, you know, discussion about things. And there was clear disagreement on a topic tonight, and it may not seem like maybe an important topic. I mean, global ties, other issues we are concerned about parking seems kind of a unimportant thing that you don't want to spend a lot of time as, but just talking and thinking about that is just kind of the busy stuff that people have to do when they live together. Figure out the details and discern, you know, what's the best way to go on it and make a decision that will not necessarily be unanimous. So, thank you. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.